Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, Epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I'm so honored to be joined by Dr. Axa Yox. Dr. Yox, tell us who you are and what you do.
Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in. Thanks for hosting me. And yes, let's have fun and let's learn some lessons here. So I'm a human biologist by my profession. I did also the PhD in microbiology with genetics. And then I decided, because I had 12 inventions, that I'm ready for the real life. So I quit science, very safe place for me. And I started my own business and I failed so bad. So it's very nice, because when I heard about your podcast, I was like, yeah, my story fits so perfectly, because I was at my peak, like in science. I knew everything. People know me, who I am. I achieved like everything you could wish in science. And then completely at the rock bottom. I couldn't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I start to question everything. What brought me where I was, why people fail, why people do what they do. It took me on the journey for 3.5 years. And I discovered completely unspoken some realities and the insights. And I shared in my book. And every time when I talk to people, they're like, "Oh, that's interesting. We never saw that way." So sometimes the biggest failure that you can have in life, it might be the beginning of the new journey. So just keep going, and you never know that one light which is off, it might be the on for the other light.
Oh, absolutely. And I know in my own life, there's, absolutely times where I've been like, wow, all of this happening is not good. And yet that door closed and a much better, more wonderful door opened for me. I had no idea, but I do believe that Epic does begin with one step forward. And all of us have done epic things. I mean, look at you. You were in science. As you said, a nice, safe place. Science is one of those things. There's all of that fabulous look. It's safe. You're doing your research. Your research gives you a yes or no answer. Sometimes a maybe, but generally a yes or a no. And then you go, forget that. Let me go out into the work world, the entrepreneur world, and
fail.
well, exactly. So tell us a little about the failure, because I think sometimes that's the interesting story.
It's very interesting that you said very safe space in science, because when I was in the very beginning in science, I didn't know anything as well. So I was starting from the scratch. But because whenever it's kind of you continue, whether it's a university or the school, it feels familiar. So you convince yourself, oh, that's something that I was born to do. But the journey is, you never know when is the next sharp turn, when is you go completely down, like you will hit the rock bottom, or it's the beginning of and you will skyrocket. You never know what is the next step until you take the next step. And there is one thing that I learned. It's not that one door closes, the other door opens. It's when one door closes, you need to keep knocking on the doors. So only those people find the next door. Sometimes it's just only the next door that you need to find. Some people stay stuck in that place, one door closed, and they just knock on the other door, it didn't open, and they are in that bubble, in the time frame, like they are stuck and they don't know how to continue, they are lost. I am one of the examples. I was successful in science. I started from scratch without any idea. I failed miserably, and still I just kept going. I didn't even know what to expect at the end of the tunnel because I was going through really dark tunnel. I just knew that where I was, I didn't want to stay there. So sometimes the sign why you have to continue is if you are in the place where you don't want to stay. And the only answer is just keep going. There is no backwards. You cannot go back. So the forward is the only place. Just simply don't stay stuck. That's the best advice that I can give to anyone.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about two similar but distinct things. One is obviously a very famous, and I'm not quoting directly, but it's basically Edison's like, I failed 100 times before I succeeded, right? Here he is, Thomas Edison, trying to invent the light bulb. He's like, I just have an idea that this is going to work, and he's trying different filaments and all of this. And that is absolutely true. And then there's a story from, I believe it's Chicken Soup for the Soul, where this guy's talking about being in a hotel room, and he sees this fly just keep trying to fly into a window. He's trying to, the fly's like, I want to get out. And yet 2 feet to the right is an open door that the fly can go out and get outside, and yet just keeps doing that. And you're exactly right. There's the people who see that defeat and keep trying to do the same thing and are like, and I don't know, maybe they're not learning from it. Certainly doesn't, just because you fail at something once doesn't mean that you don't try it again. But after a couple of times, you got to say, this isn't working. And in my book, I talk about failure is part of the journey. And when you fail, there's a lot of learning there. In fact, there's probably more learning than succeeding. And you learn how not to do something. Oh, that's not how to do that. I laugh because we're both entrepreneurs. I don't know about you, but I've spent more money than I want to think about on different tools that are there to help me. And they're not that they're bad tools. They're just not the right tool for me, be it, database management, contact management, software to help you transcribe or whatever. These are all fabulous products, but it may not be the one for you.
It's a nice thing that you said, because I always look at whatever you learn in life, even if it is not the right thing at this moment, it doesn't mean that when you continue your path, you will never need to use, like how to write the word success. If you learn only A, B, C, right? You will write just only part. There are only 2 C's in the word success. But you need to continue to learn all the letters. Then you learn to put the letters together in the right sequence. Then you create the word. The same is the path that you go, but you have to start with A. You cannot go to the school and say, oh, I want to start with S. Why? Because you don't know what you might need on your path. The ingredients change. Even the recipe, you needed this today, but it might happen tomorrow in the morning. You start and you are like, oh, I want to have different something for my breakfast. It doesn't mean that what you had yesterday is wrong. It's just only change of the perspective of the taste. Something which was not on the time yesterday doesn't mean that it's not on time today. I learned everything in science. And while I was applying the same system in life, what's the difference? The biggest, like the hugest difference in science. There is no failure in science. If you try the experiment, it didn't work, it's still, that doesn't work. But in business, if you are running out of the money, or the customer doesn't like the product, you are out of the business, period. But I didn't know, so I needed to learn. Yet there is a huge advantage that I learned in science, while you can never learn if you are in the business from the very beginning. What? I learned to research and to put the literature together, because that's what you do in science. You need to put all the existing literature, learn first of all how to interpret and how to know, even if it is published, whether it's the correct information or not. So your analytical skills have to be at the top. Plus, you have to put all the literature together and say, oh, this is not done. So you find a spot like the niche, which was not researched before, and then you dive there. That helped me to find what is not spoken up to now. And now I applied already to go for the TEDx talk with something which is not spoken. So it's the combination of what you learned, what is possible, but it's how you apply. So it's not what I learned, but how I took everything I learned from science and applied for the business. And I found the right application, because I could sit there and I would be like, oh, there is nothing that I can take from the science, because the system is so different. Yeah, it's just only the execution, but you have to try. And the failure, you were so right. Failure can teach you so much more versus if you succeed. Why? Because when you succeed and you come to particular, like you hit the ceiling and you think, oh, that's your maximum. But when you fail, you learn, oh, wow, okay, that could be the outcome. This is what I shouldn't do. This is how to do it better. So you start to pivot. Also, you learn how to continue. That's crucial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, there's, God, I'm sitting here trying to remember because I know the author and now I can't remember. I had the name of the book and just went. Anyway, Daniel Coyle wrote this awesome book, and I'm sorry, audience, I cannot remember what it's called. But anyway, what he's talking about is for mastery, it's like sort of the 10,000 hours, but there's more in he starts the book off and he's talking about this young lady playing the cello, and she's trying to play Blue Danube, and she's struggling, and he's like, there is so much more learning in making mistakes and struggling to do it. And he's talking about what we're building a information superhighway and wrapping myelin around how to do something so it becomes muscle memory. And the thing I like to think about is you referenced your ABCs. Think back to when you were just starting to go to school. Writing an A took so much effort, and you struggled so hard, and you struggled to learn how to make an A and a B and a C and an S and all of that. Now you don't even, there's no like conscious effort in it. Why? Because you built this myelin superhighway of this is how your muscle memory, how to do it. And I think in business, they're the things that we start off and we struggled so hard to do, and now they're easier because we've practiced. And I think sometimes people we're all getting used to a little instant gratification. What's that answer? Let me find it right away. Let me go to Google, right? But you're right. There is a lot of goodness in doing your own research. Okay. Yeah, Google is this internet's incredible to find information and synthesize it, but you still actually have to use your brain and do it. So my question for you is, what do you talk about in your book about success and struggle and all of that?
Thank you for that question, because actually I just republished the book and I changed the title. The previous was Stop Calling It a Comfort Zone. And every time when I would speak about my book, people would be going like, oh, I know what's inside the book. And I was like, that's zero chance that you would know, because what I describe in the book while I was going through the darkness, I was questioning everything, why I was doing the same mistake, and I was stumbling, and it looked like enough is not enough. And I couldn't let the past go. And every time when you watch the motivational speaker, they normally say, let the past go. So I was stuck there, and it would even piss me off every time to hear. So that's why I even started my journey to find out what's behind why I cannot let the past go. I found that there is one promise which we give to ourselves when we are kids. And because our cautious is not enough matured, so it cannot analyze. But at that moment, when you are at your highest peak of emotional engagement, this is when the strongest bond in our memory is created. Like when you have the emotion and when event happens, this is the strongest. But still, when it happens, your cautious is not mature enough. So that information is imprinted in your subconscious. And subconscious, anything which is imprinted, it is biochemically imprinted. You cannot change that unless you cautiously fix that. And I didn't know about that. I started to dig deeper every question, why I do what I do, why I do what I do. I didn't stop for 3 years. Every single choice, every decision was questioned until I came to one point. I was completely like cornered, no idea how to continue. And then my mom was visiting me, and I was looking at her, and I was like sinking in my memory layer by layer, because I already had this experience of self-analysis for 3 years. I already kind of decluttered the layers from my subconscious. So it was just only one part there which I didn't touch. It was 1 second, like the missing piece of the puzzle came in, and I completely found what was my promise, one promise which shaped complete life for me. And that was, wow, I let the past go in 1 second because I knew what I needed to let go. Before, for 4 decades, I was stumbling. I was stuck. It took me one, because when you are already, when you start to analyze the situation, if somebody would give you the coffee and they would tell you, oh, this is juice, they cannot convince you, because you are like, okay, this is coffee. You cannot convince me that it's juice. But once you go through the explanation why coffee, let's say, it's a very bad example, but I mean, you know what I mean. If I explain you what I give to you, what is behind the word, then you realize. But if I would tell you, oh, that's a coffee, just drink it, you would be like, no, that's not. That's the same. Once you understand what do you need to let go, it's easier, because then you can make this discussion to yourself. Is it beneficial for me? Is it good to continue? So you just go through all answered questions, and you come to the point, like, to summarize and say, enough is enough. But then you know what is inside, like, what do you need to let go? If you are stuck, for me, it was a complete discovery, like the problem with the addiction. It's not what you are addicted to, like it's drugs, alcohol, nicotine, or gambling, or sugar. Food is one of the strongest addictions in the world. Everybody knows that, right? And then I was questioning, okay, paycheck is also addiction, right? Because you are not addicted to the paycheck. If it is the money issue, you would just find other way to earn money. So it's the emotional addiction to feel safe. And emotional addiction is the strongest. Social media is like, we are addicted to dopamine through the likes and blah, 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 right? And then I was going deeper, deeper, deeper. And I was like, no, I need to crack that. And then I realized that the strongest addiction is the addiction to have addiction. So whatever it is, you will just change what you are addicted to. That's what you have to free yourself from. Whether it's the movie, whether it's gambling, whether it's going out, go out. I'm not telling don't go out, don't watch the movie, but free yourself. Why? Because then you free yourself from the outcome. And then you can enjoy the outcome and then work with the outcome. When we are stuck in the particular phase and you expect, so before you break everything and then you start to assemble the puzzle per day, assemble the puzzle per day, because every single day is kind of the part of your life. It has the beginning, it's the morning, then the main action, then the evening, then the night. Every single day you have the chance to start afresh and to do different colors. Tomorrow, start fresh, do something else, but you need to break free from that keeps you stuck. What is the
Absolutely.
outcome?
Absolutely. And I'll add on to that and say, as a mental health professional, when you're talking about addiction and stuff like that, a lot of that, no matter what it is, it's a basic human psychological need to we like structure. Structure makes us feel safe. And ultimately, there's a biological imperative to feel safe. When we don't feel safe, it has a profound effect on our physical body, but also on our mind. So when we have an addiction, like anything, oh, I know this. This is how I do it, and I'll use not necessarily it's not an addiction, but when you drive to work, we tend to choose one way to get to work, and we even though we rationally know there's more than one way to get there, we take the same route. I know I did. I used to work in the corporate world, and I was like, here's how I get to work. And I never entertained that there's more than one way to get there. But one day on the way home, I couldn't go the two different ways I knew, alternate routes, and I had to go a completely different one. Now, it took probably 10 more minutes, but it was infinitely prettier. And I was like, I'm going to incorporate this change for the days where I'm like, I just need a little more pretty in my life. Change is really, really hard. I'm sure you would agree with me. Change is really hard, and it takes time and practice, and it's scary. So you talk about letting go of something. We all have things that basically we just perseverate on, just around and around the same thing. I need to have an answer. But sometimes you're simply not going to have an answer, and you need to have that moment of clarity like you did when your mom was visiting, where you let that go. And isn't that like all of a sudden you said that last piece came in? You let it go. I know in my life, one of those moments, and I like you, I remember exactly where I was in my car. 28 years ago, my older sister was murdered, which was horribly sad. But I remember where I was when I just had this momentary thought, which is, I will never know why this happened. I'd been for months like trying to, like, this isn't fair. And why did this happen? I'm not going to know that. So I let that go. And that was incredibly cathartic and freeing for me to be able to move on, right? I work with lots of people who've experienced loss, and a lot of them are just stuck on why did this happen? And I keep trying to encourage them. I don't know that you'll have that answer. But in business, we fail. No one likes to fail. No one sets out and goes, I'm going to spend 3 years and fail horribly at this. You don't do that. But here's the thing. We get scared about, I'm starting a business. It's scary. I don't know how it's going to end. But let me make it a lot easier for all of us. We got up this morning, but we have no idea how our day's going to go. But it doesn't mean that we stay in bed hiding because we don't have all the answers for every single question that we're going to get today. We don't. So why do we not have fear about just getting on with our day and all the unknown that's going to happen? And yet, when it comes to bigger things like our business, oh, well, if I don't have all the answers, if I don't know everything that's going to happen, that's not how life is.
Yes, and we live every single day. And thank you for the line that you said. It's not always the addiction, and you are completely right. So the problem with the addiction it becomes a problem when we are addicted to anything. And you are right. When you leave that and you are not stuck to, well, first of all, you need to understand why you are stuck. Okay, you are stuck. Why you are stuck? Are you stuck because you are scared to fail? Why you are stuck? So once you keep digging deeper, why, question everything, every answer, you will come to understand. Mostly it might be the shame, because we set some goals that we want to hit, and then the bar was too high, then you failed, because the failure, it's nothing like you just missed hitting the goal, right? But you set the goal, so you can lower the bar a little bit, and then try again, then you will not miss. But one thing, remember forever, if you are failing, it shows that you grow, because the person who doesn't grow, that person cannot fail. It's simply impossible. But then they fail the complete life. So with the failure, it's only two options. Either you try, fail, learn, then repeat, or you fail your life. What's your choice?
Right. Or
There
the only thing that will fail 100% on are the things that we do not try.
Yes, that's ultimate failure. It's worse than to try to fail. And it might happen that while trying, you will figure out, oh, okay, there is something I didn't know, and I like that. You will find completely different thing to do. When I was out of the science, right? I published the book, and I didn't even have any idea that I would ever publish the book. I will start a podcast. I would write the TEDx talk. If you would tell me when I was in the tunnel and just keep coming, like keep coming, this is at the end, I would be like, it's nonsense. It was not even on the list. But because I was failing, that's how I even came to realize. I tried several businesses, didn't work, nothing. But if I would stay stuck there in my head, trying to build my business and nurturing my ideas and in my head, what would happen? I would just simply fail completely in my life. So even if you fail, it's not final if you don't decide. If you don't quit, you don't fail. But there is a very huge nuance that we need to keep repeating. If you fail, it doesn't mean that you need to continue that way. So there are particular nuances that we need to understand. Why do you fail? Do you fail that it's not, you don't like it enough, that's why you don't put enough effort? That's also the option. You don't fail because you are not skilled, then go and learn the skills. You don't succeed because what's behind? Because if you are determined to get something, the best example is when the person wants to go to the restroom. You don't have people, I'm sorry for my language, but peeing under themselves all the time, right?
Sure.
You find a way to go to the restroom, right? So that's the motivation behind. If you want something badly, you will find a way to do.
Absolutely.
If you don't do, there is something behind. So either you don't want, or where you are is better, or something stops you. Before you find and free yourself from that anchor which drags you down, you will continue sliding back to your comfort zone. Because I don't know why there is a conception like the comfort zone is the area where we live, and you are like, no, but it's illusion. Everything is in your head. So when we say you need to step out of your comfort zone, it doesn't literally mean you need to step out. So everything is in your head: decision, failure, success, love, life. Pick your heart.
Absolutely. And the way I talk about, the comfort zone or whatever, is I think we have two boats in our life. We have a rowboat on the river reality and a very comfortable yacht on the river denial. And it's so much easier to be on the yacht. It's comfortable. But we have to spend more time in the rowboat. And in the rowboat, it's a lot of work. You got to work hard. You're going to get wet. You may be cold. You may be hot. But when we're in that rowboat, we're actually making progress in our life. We're moving the boat. The yacht just sits there on the river Denial. It's very comfortable. People are bringing you drinks, you got food, but you're not actually you're not going anywhere. You're in your comfort zone. And look, it may be that you spend enough time in the rowboat that starts to be a little more comfortable because you again, like exercise. When you first start exercising, it's really hard. Let's say it's running. But if you keep up at it, you find that when where you started off and running a mile was really hard, now running a mile is not as hard. So then you go, all right, well, I was able to achieve that. Yeah, I had aches and pains. I ran in the rain. It was dark. But I kept up at it. And you feel good and you get lots of other benefits outside of just the running, right? You're sleeping better. You may be eating better. You mentally feel more, sharp. All of these things. It's amazing. And when we all go on these epic journeys, we don't know where they're going to go. We can have an understanding of what destination we think we want to get to. Sometimes where we thought we wanted to go and where we end up are different, but the different is so much better. I agree with you. If you told me in college I was going to write 3 books, I would have said, no, absolutely not. I hate writing. And I really do. I don't like writing. I'm a talker, not a typer, but I figured out how to write 3 books because here's the important part. We are all incredibly adaptive. We've made it a few million years here as a human race because we're adaptable. We can learn new stuff.
I love that we touch, I want to touch 2 things. So with the comfort zone. So when we call the zone where we are unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled to be a comfort zone, first of all, you signal to your brain that being unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled is comfortable for you. That's why you sabotage yourself, because you create that conflicting beliefs in the same mind that's comfortable. Then your brain would be like, why do you want to quit? You create that conflict in your own head, and then you are surprised that you sabotage. Why? Because we are biologically wired to safety. And by the way, this is something that we'll learn. It's not natural. It's my opinion. I might be very wrong, because the opinion which exists that we are biologically wired to feel safe, right? And I will even say, like, for some animals, when they are born, they run right away. They can run because they need to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Kids, the children are not. So if we are not able to move right after we are born, we are not born to survive. We are born to thrive, but we learn survival as a coping mechanism when we grow, because every time, even from the protective perspective, our parents or the peers warn you, don't do that. And then we hear this innocent sentence, the phrase, I told you so. It creates this part in your brain that every time when there is a match, you convince yourself that everything you heard before is the truth. And then the parents, they create the comfort zone around you. It's not a comfort zone as it is, as a warning zone around you, where they alerted you all the time. If you step there, this is what will happen. So you already prospect what will happen, and then you keep yourself safe. So less we warn the kids, better because when we warn the child or anyone we teach our experience, right? The child, let's be honest, even if the child falls, they never cry. We teach them to cry if it hurts. We teach them, even if there is a scratch, like the tiny scratch, some moms, they go, oh my, and then you teach the overreaction to your child, and then you are surprised that the child starts to cry every single time. But because you are already biochemically changing, shifting, and when the child is really tiny, you need to protect, then the child grows up and you don't have the time. So all the pieces of the puzzle you start to assemble, and then you are surprised with the picture that you created for yourself. So the destiny, there is no destiny, there is a journey. That's something that we need to break in our head forever. There is no destiny, there is a journey. And every single day is a destiny. You start and you end, and you need to do the move in the right direction. And there is no right and wrong. So everything that you start to anchor yourself to, expect and see as the outcome, you limit yourself because you don't see the bigger picture. You don't expect that something else will happen. The same as you said, you just said, if you would tell me that I would write 3 books, I would be right. If you would be stuck there and you would be like, I'm not going to write the book, I didn't see that as my destiny, right? Now we would never share this. So every change might be the beneficial. And the second thing that I really want to mention is about the unfairness, because I'm new in the country. I came to the US, like it's my 3rd year, but the 5th year in general. And in the very beginning, even I was in science for blah, 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 really very successful. I was insulted in all possible ways. So for my accent, though I spent most of the time in Europe, but still you don't speak all the time because you do the experiments, right? I was insulted for my accent. I wasn't very fluent with English. I need to translate everything and then answer and then to translate. Every time when I say I'm learning to speak English, people are like, but you're fluent with English. I'm like, no, I need to break that translation because sometimes it takes me time and people think that I don't even understand. I was insulted for the hair color, for the eye color, everything what is possible. So if I could sit there and say, okay, it's unfair and blah, 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 right? But even now on social media, people would literally write to me like, how is it to be in America as non-American? And I'm like, what that's supposed to be like? Why you are?
I'm sorry about that.
But that unfairness, injustice brought me to the point when I said, you are not to tell me who I am. I will tell you who I am, and you have to accept that.
Yeah.
We should stop that perspective of the surrounding to tell us who we are. We need to tell the world who we are.
Yeah.
And you need to dig deeper and understand. And where the injustice in the world ends, that's where starts your unfair advantage. Because if I would be born in this country, it might happen that I would never push my limits because I would be too comfortable.
Sure.
But because I was in hell, I was in real hell, I needed to move from there. So sometimes the best motivation for you, it's the place where you are and you don't want to stay there.
Absolutely. Discomfort will actually get us to make a change, even if we don't want to.
I love it.
So, Dr. Yox, I want to thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I'm sure you and I could talk for hours on end here, but this has been great. I want to thank you so much. How can people find your book and get a hold of you?
My book is on Amazon, and also I have my own page so they can get the ebook for cheaper, obviously. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, and I actually teach people how to eat healthier and how to improve their productivity and the mindset through the right diet. So they can approach me and we continue from there on. Thank you for hosting me.
Well, thank you so much. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. I also want to remind you that coming soon is my new TV show, Epic Begins with One Step Forward. And as always, I want to remind everyone that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.